craziest transformations in NBA history. We often put labels on players as they enter the NBA, stating what type of player they are. Anyone who has observed the NBA over time knows that players change all the time. They transform their games, their minds, and their bodies. And some transformations are so crazy, they have everyone turning their heads. LeBron James. Probably the most watched, scrutinized, observed, praised, and criticized NBA player in his generation is LeBron James. People watch his every move, on and off the court. Even if you didn't want to, it's hard not to. LeBron is such a massive presence, though he didn't always have this exact frame. When LeBron came into the league, yes, he was built, but for NBA standards, he was still a skinny kid for the most part. Plenty of rookies and young players were skinnier than LeBron, but he came straight out of high school. He hadn't had enough years under his belt to get that grown man weight added to his frame. But LeBron eventually bulked up. His later years in his first stint in Cleveland and his years in Miami will show you that. He added a lot of muscle, and just more weight in general, and in a good way. He was able to outmuscle defenders and move people out of the way on his drives to the basket with even more ease than before. This came from more time in the gym and more carefully constructed diets. And yes, that grown man weight that he couldn't possibly have had as a teenager. But LeBron would slim down a bit after his Miami days. Having limited carbs, he shed weight and excess fat, keeping plenty of muscle of course. But he had a more slender frame, more similar to his younger years, but with more strength. This may have been the happiest compromise to LeBron's body. As he was getting older and approaching 30, this was a smart move. With LeBron's weight, one can never be sure what's accurate unless you have a camera trained on his scale. He was said to have come into the league at 240, was listed at 250 for many years when he was clearly much larger than his rookie year. Many people believe that he was often closer to the 275 mark. Whatever his actual weight was, it doesn't matter much. The difference you could see in his body and in his game were telling enough that the King was transforming his body for the better all throughout his career. Carmelo Anthony. When you hear the word transformation, you might think of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Maybe you think of a Pokemon evolving. Or maybe you think of all the different forms Carmelo Anthony has taken on. There, of course, was early Melo, the skinny young kid with all the talent in the world, able to score at will from anywhere on the court, but not quite so big yet. At the end of his tenure with the Nuggets and into his days with the Knicks, Melo added some of that grown man weight. Clearly having spent some time in the weight room, New York Melo was much bigger and more intimidating. Still able to score at will, mid-range, outside the three-point line, he now improved his post game. Able to push defenders around even more, Melo could bully his way to the basket for an easy 2. Once every 4 years, you'll see the transformation to Olympic Melo, one of the most unstoppable versions of a player in NBA history. And in practices and gym workouts, you'll often see Hoodie Melo, the cool and quiet assassin. But the most recent transformation was back to Skinny Melo. After bulking up in his prime in order to push defenders around, in his NBA golden years, Melo smartly switched up his diet in order to get trim and more agile. His time with the Portland Trail Blazers proved to be a rebirth of his game. New York moves and new style mixed in with some of the old school Melo, he's still too tough to stop. Miles Turner. The Texas native Miles Turner has played a short but very promising career. Having 5 seasons with the Indiana Pacers under his belt, Turner has shown us a great deal of skill in that time. And what's probably most impressive is his dedication to perfecting his body and his craft. Turner's first 3 years were excellent. The center contributed a lot to his Pacers and helped them reach the playoffs every year. He is a massive defensive presence, standing at 6'11", and has an offensive game that is key to Indiana's production. But in order to continue to excel in his NBA career, Turner decided to take it to the next level. He changed his diet, and he even took up yoga. Adding these factors to his workout routine, he came into the 2018-2019 season having trimmed his total body fat percentage from 14 down to 7. If you ask Turner, he'll tell you, looking at himself in the mirror before this transformation, he was pudgy. His words, not ours. But now look at him. He is anything but pudgy. The guy looks like he is ready to go 12 rounds with a heavyweight. Turner was getting tired more quickly in the 2017-2018 season, and his production did start to falter. No worries after his transformation. He saw arguably his best year yet. In 2018-2019, he was the NBA blocking champion with his league best 2.7 blocks per game. He also had one of his best years in terms of scoring and rebounding. and watching him this year, you can easily see the difference in his energy levels. All facets of his game improved. No more were the days of fast food, pizza, and sluggishness on the court. It's amazing what a little diet change in yoga can do for you. GIANNIS Antetokounmpo. The Greek freak hasn't always been the freak of nature he is now. He has, however, always been Greek. But the Greek isn't so great of a nickname. GIANNIS Antetokounmpo was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks in hopes he would turn into a great role player. This move by the Bucks couldn't have turned out any better, because in Giannis's early years in the NBA, he did become a great role player. He was a tall and skinny player with a boatload of energy and fantastic athleticism, eager to make a name for himself and improve year in and year out. The Bucks probably never would have guessed that Giannis would be able to pull off the transformation that ensued. Giannis hit the gym, and he hit it hard. The once skinny and energetic role player morphed into a built beast of a man, putting on more muscle and weight in order to give himself more force in his game. Giannis was gradually able to impose his will on players more and more. Even the largest of centers were having trouble controlling him. He even improved his game, from passing to dribbling to outside shots. Over the years, he continued to sculpt his body like, yep, you guessed it, a Greek god, and he continued to perfect his game, making him deadly from many spots on the court. He solidified himself as a bona fide star in Milwaukee. He became an all-star, an MVP, a defensive player of the year. He is elite in this league. You would be hard-pressed to find someone who doesn't put him in their top 5 best active players. You wouldn't have much trouble finding someone who ranks him 1 or 2. Milwaukee was looking for a role player, and they got it. And then, Giannis transformed himself into so much more. James Harden. Raised in Southern California, James Harden would eventually become one of the most lethal scoring machines in the modern-day NBA. But in his time playing high school ball, that didn't really seem to be in the cards. He showed a lot of promise, but he lacked endurance and strength. This was something Harden worked on throughout his early years of high school and college ball, tweaking and fine-tuning his body so that he could play more minutes. When he made it to the NBA, he was well suited for his position. An excellent scorer off the bench for the Oklahoma City Thunder, though still on the skinny side. But Harden quickly proved himself to be not just a bench player, he was one of the best bench players in the business. He became one of the best players on the Thunder, forming an excellent trio along with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. In his third year in the 2011-2012 season, he won 6th Man of the Year and helped his team to reach the finals. After the Thunder's loss in the finals, Harden decided he needed to spread his wings. He knew he could be an all-star, and he also knew he could be paid like an all-star. That is exactly what happened. Harden went to the Houston Rockets and immediately began to lead his team with much success, averaging 25 points a game or higher every season, making the playoffs every season, becoming an all-star every season. Harden had transformed into a star by all accounts. In this time, Harden grew out the now famous beard, which is quite the facial transformation itself. During his time in Houston, Harden has continued to get more and more swole. The thin, trim 6th Man of the Year from OKC had become the strong and swollen, grown man, Houston All-Star, and perennial MVP candidate year in and year out, winning the award in 2018. And his game continued to transform each year. Harden perfected his three-point game. The amount of threes he would jack up increased each year. His accuracy improved. His ball handling, his step-back game, and his continual progress in the weight room made his drives to the basket harder and harder to stop without fouling him. Harden may, at times, be known as the free throw master. There are games where half of his points are derived from shots on the foul line, but it's all part of Harden's game. Be big enough, strong enough, fast enough to drive past defenders to the hoop, cause them to foul you as you muscle through and put up a shot. Who cares if the shot goes in? A trip to the free throw line is on the books and upcoming. Marc Gasol. Hailing from Spain, Marc Gasol was a player who always had a lot of extra weight, but he played so well, and even used his weight to his advantage, so it was never really a problem. He was a big man in the NBA who played like a big man, a defensive juggernaut, making it difficult for anyone to get past him once he planted his feet. But as the game evolved and the use of the big man evolved, so too did Gasol. Bigs were expected to help stretch the floor with outside shooting, and be able to defend multiple positions, including smaller and faster guards. The bigs of yesteryear that couldn't adapt became liabilities. Gasol was too smart to let that happen to him. He slimmed down, dropping a lot of weight. Major changes in diet, cutting out fast food and junk food, and just training harder made this big man undergo a big transformation. Gasol had deep range and quickness and agility to be able to defend smaller players. but still kept some weight to throw around when he was on a fellow big guy. He had much success in Memphis, but it wasn't until he moved to Toronto that he found the most success, and his versatility at his position proved to be a major factor in the Raptors' success, as they won their first ever championship. GASOL has kept the trimmed down figure, but more recently, even trimmed himself down more. Teammates have been calling him Skinny GASOL, and asking if he's leaving the Raptors to go play professional soccer. All jokes aside, the slender Spaniard has transformed his body to better his game, and has proven to be effective at the very highest level. Final thoughts. In a high-intensity league such as the NBA, many types of game, many kinds of body sizes, and varying levels of athleticism, all are welcome. But change is always imminent, and these players realized change would benefit them, and change drastically. Thanks for watching another UpNext Sports video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Any big transformations that you think we left out? Comment and let us know. And join us for another video.